Okay, we're recording. So tonight we're talking about goals, and we're talking about goals reinvented. So I want to introduce 4 levels of consciousness. I just want to bring that up so I can read it out for you. So the 4 levels of consciousness, the levels, and this is just a model that I'm using to look at goals at the moment. It's something we explore in much more depth on the Elite Mentorship Forum, but I thought I'd just cover the goal setting levels and how our shadows impact on it. And am I going to be able to bring that up here? Yes. So the 4 levels of consciousness are by me, through me, as me. The 3 levels. The first one is to me. So if we look at the first level there, to me, this is the first level, the lower level of consciousness, to me. It's happening to me. I'm the victim. And a lot of people sit at this level where they're playing the victim. They're not going to set goals at this level. So this is why I didn't really include it in here, because they're just waiting for life to happen to them. They're just sitting there. They expect it to happen. So if we're looking at it from the business perspective, this this to me level, um, you've got a business person who'd be working in a silo. They're not communicating with other people. They're not looking at the bigger picture, because in this victim mode, you're in denial and protection. Most of it is trying to make it work for you and not giving anything away to other people, because you're in a victim mode. I'm not succeeding because the world hates me. That sort of thing. So you're going to live in a world of blame, of finger pointing, of resistance to connection. Really difficult place as a business person to actually run successful business and have goals. This is sort of level where you're writing the goals down. They might even be plastered on the wall, but you're not going to achieve anything through them because there's no commitment to it. You're always looking for excuses, someone else to blame. So if you're sitting at this sort of level, you probably won't be listening to this podcast anyway, and it's not somewhere where we're gonna discuss goal setting. So the next level is the buy me level. Okay, and this is where most people are, the buy me level. Let me just bring this up. So the buy me level is where we're working really hard, the achiever level, if you like. But it's the level where the thinking, the concepts, the work we're doing is all forced. It's all pressurized. It's all willpower. Everything has to be done by me. Okay, so this is the sort of the business person, the entrepreneur that's running around trying to connect all the dots, flat out, working really hard, 80 hours a week, flat out, setting goals, achieving goals, very materialistic goals. So the wage rise, the next contract, the more, if I'm a coach, the next level of the next number of clients I'm getting. It works. Probably where most people are at this level in today's society. And very much in goal setting, but very materialistic goals. It's all about assets that I can buy. So the wage rise, the perfect relationship, the business that's running, but it's heart attack city. So goal set, it's a very goal orientated way to be. It's all fuel generated, adrenaline generated. But it's an area that by me is looking for external validation. So somebody at this level is setting their goals, but they're looking for somebody outside to tell them that they've done a good job. See, materialistic thinking is achieving stuff to compare myself to somebody else. So I've got the bigger house or the bigger car. And the driver, or one of the bigger drivers, is a fear of failure. And many people sit there with that. They want to prove that they can do it, especially to their father. They want to prove that they can do it because their dad told them they weren't good enough, or somebody at school, or somebody in their young life told them they weren't good enough. And the driver is an away from drive, an away from value, something that they don't want. They don't want to end up like their parents struggling. So there's fear of failure. as a major driver. Very goal orientated, but quite materialistic goals. Um, so let's just read here. So they're very much orientated along a line of looking to increase sales by 10% a month, rather than rather than cultivating a customer centric culture within the company. So okay, so that's the materialistic part of that goal. They're more willing, more interested in achieving the 10% than customer care. Customer care is a bit more ethereal. It's a bit harder to grasp a hold of. It's not as measurable. Harder to set a smart goal to something like customer care. So you could break that down into a materialistic. So can I get more positive referrals this month? That's not materialistic. It's not materialistically measurable, but that's the sort of goal setting we're looking at here. Achieving a 10% raise in growth rather than increasing customer care or focusing on customer care. So this is the buy me. It's, if you like the metaphor of the river, it's driving against the stream, using as much pressure and force as possible. Relationships might suffer because of this, because you're very focused. So your constant strive out, perfect area for burnout. Now, a lot of the population of the world the Western world is starting to change this view. And so, this is what parents did. They worked hard, worked their asses off, achieved a lot, but then got fired or had a heart attack when they were 58, or a lot of stuff pulled them down so that why am I going to do what my parents did? Why am I going to struggle like my parents? Difficult, difficult. What have I got here? Let me just bring this up and find out what's going on. Why is that not running? Okay, didn't post. That'll help. Hey, so the next level is the 3 level, where our thinking is starting to move from this materialistic goal orientated thinking to more of a let's actually go with the flow of the river. Let's actually, still work on not hitting all the rocks in the river, but let's start to move with the flow of the river. So letting go of the rigid controls, still have goals, but we're looking at a sense of purpose, a sense of connection, a sense of collaboration. So the goal setting that we're going to be looking at here is more collaborative. It's more aligned with focusing on our core values. So this is a sort of business, a sort of company that'll be looking at the values of the company. So you have to be careful with companies because a lot of them will write their values and they'll have them stuck on the wall behind the secretary or behind the entrance to the building, and that's where they'll stay. They'll be stuck on the wall and forgotten about. So we're moving into through me, but we're not really embracing it. So through me is this thinking where I don't need to burn out. I don't want to wear myself out, kill myself out, use force to get anywhere, because we know that power overcomes force. So in through me, it's more looking to be collaborative. So working with a team, working for the better of everybody than just me, or working for the better of the environment than my company. A high level of consciousness, large groups are starting to move into this, but probably not as many people as there are in the buy me sort of thinking. Because buy me, you can achieve stuff, you can see it, you can touch it. Through me, increasing customer care. It's something it's hard to grasp a hold of. So there's a certain amount of reluctance there to move into this level. So that's a collaborative through me level. So we're building blocks, we're building relationships. It's, I suppose the story I remember is Richard Branson's story from when he first started Virgin Atlantic. If you've read his book, what is his book? Virgin something. He talks about when they've got the first plane, they have to pass FFA, FFA procedures, and the day before the engine fell off. Well, they were screwed. If they didn't get this flying, the first plane wouldn't have flown. It wouldn't have been approved to fly, and we wouldn't have Virgin Airways. The team he had working for him were working in much more of a collaborative sense, and they knew that there was a spare engine in BA, their biggest rivals, their enemies, if you like. But they worked with the guys at BA and they got the engine across and they got it on their plane and they flew the plane. Now we know who Virgin is. If you were looking at Imperial Materialistic, you wouldn't have those relationships built up. You wouldn't have that collaboration. So Richard Branson had set a system up there where the team were all part of this evolution, this part of this development. I suppose in COVID, it worked really well for Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand because they were fighting. The team of 5 million were fighting the jab, were fighting the virus. So she brought the country together as a team. That was the line. We're a team of 5 million fighting the virus. So very much, her goal there is very much in Sumi being collaborative. But to be there, you've got to be able to release a lot. So each of these levels, and I'll go into the shadows more in a minute, is dealing with more of the shadows. You can't get into a through me level if you're worried about losing everything, if you're still in the victim mode. You'll be back down at that level. So there's a lot of stuff you've released, you've integrated, you've faced your shadows, you've faced your demons. And then the next level, the fourth level. Let me just bring that one up. The fourth level. Where are we? The fourth level is the ASME thinking. ASME. This is a much higher level of consciousness where you really are connecting as a team. You are really working to connect the company mission. So you're really understanding that we work as a team. You're actually working as a team. It's not just written on the wall. You're actually actively involved in it, much like Richard Branson's group, Richard Branson's engineers there. They all had this same goal. They all had this same focus. They're all collaborating together. Now they managed to talk the other company, the rival company, into helping them out, just another level. So touching on bits of ASME. So there's a sense they're being driven much more by purpose than goals. There's a purpose, there's a vision. He wouldn't be selling a let's get this plane in the air and make more money, which is a goal. He'd be selling let's develop an airline which can show the world how air travel should be. So he's delivering and having the employees come on board to really be involved in the company. It's always being shareholders, but not shareholders. The thing that I think about when I read this one is a jazz band where the players don't necessarily have a tune, they're all just jamming effectively, and they're all just coming in, and there will be this riff, this roll going through the music as they come in and they go out of the music. So there's a synergy coming in there. And this is something that the team, the group is running at a high consciousness level because you're not questioning the other players. You're working as a team, but on a much deeper level. This is when you're really in flow. So jazz band that's playing, the players, the instruments, the players are just the players just coming in, going out. Sports team that's playing at this level is one that I worked with a team years ago who didn't really have to communicate because they knew that, they were going forward, they passed the ball, they didn't have to look because they knew that the next player would be exactly where they were putting the ball. That's unconscious communication, if you like. So that's this ASME level, and not very many people work at this level. So most people are working at this by me level where they're driving. Everything's about the goal setting. It's all about the assets, the bigger money, the bigger the house, the better relationship. A lot of people in the Shrimi, where they're starting to move into, I want to work as a team. I want to be more collaborative. I want to sort of set group goals, if you like. So they're moving from this individualistic to work for themselves into a more, and even an entrepreneur, it's coming together as collaborating with other entrepreneurs. How can we do this way? How can I help society? So there are four different levels there. And what I wanted to talk about tonight was actually how your shadows work in here. So the first thing here is self-awareness. Developing self-awareness is helping you to raise your consciousness level. As you become more self-aware, you become aware that working hard, too hard, and having these goals set and having these materialistic settings that you have to keep reaching is actually hard work. And as you start to meditate, as you start to do self-development work, you start to realize that, you know, I take out of the world what I brought into the world. It doesn't matter if I've got $1 million in the bank, I can't take it with me. So you might have a generation ago had that thought at the end of your life, but now people are having it waking up a lot earlier. You're realizing at 30 or 40 or 20 that, if I tie myself into that job, I'll have a lot of money to take to the graveyard. It's not really going to be where people are. But to reach this, there's a level of self-awareness that starts to happen. There is required to evolve within the person. So if you're struggling with buy me, you're striving, you're pushing, you're proving your worth, you're starting to struggle with why do I need to do this? Now there's a big part of self-development is realizing that those are goals that are you're looking for outside validation. So you're looking to the outside world to prove yourself or to show that you can do what you said you've done. Become self-aware, you realize that, as Marcus Aurelius said, as within, so without. It's not what's happening outside, it's what's happening inside. So what's happening inside is this turmoil and pushing, and that's what I'm seeing on the outside. So it's just rolling in on itself, and you can't seem to get out of it. So pulling back, realizing that I don't want to achieve that anymore. Part of that is starting to look internally, becoming self-aware. So instead of achieving to meet others' expectations, it's what do I really want? How to change your goal setting there. I know if you're goal setting at the lowest level, you're goal setting usually on what your parents want, what society want, what you think other people expect you to have. So how we think we should be in the world, how we think other people see us in the world. You start to wake up, you realize that doesn't matter. That's what we say with the elite mentorship forums, we call that goop, good opinion of other people. That's their opinion. And I can let go of my power, give my power away to them, or I can hold on to the power and actually decide what I want to do. So what are my real goals? Get rid of society's expectations for me. What do I really want to do? And it's actually surprisingly hard. And it's not a matter of the way they teach it, it's a matter of sort of sitting down and writing for 10 minutes to really find out what it is. But what it really is it's getting rid of all the stuff that's the crap that you've been brought up with, to get rid of all the stuff on top, to really start to dig down to what really gets you going, what really motivates you. And it can be really difficult to reach that point. Our education system, society has put these masks on us, these layers of the onion, if you like, where that real core driver for us, that real passion that we have, can be really difficult to reach. And it's that first stages of self-development, become aware of what I'm doing isn't making me happy. It's something that's been imposed upon me. And that's the first level of self-awareness. So it takes more work and then looking at some of our shadows to really start to get back to the passion. What do I really want to do? And this is across life. I'm talking about business career here, but it can be about relationships. We go into a relationship and we look at what the outside world wants for us, or what we think that that person will see in us. When really you have to, we talked about this in the previous module on mastering relationships. The most important person in your life to have a relationship with is yourself. You can't have a relationship with somebody else that's going to be successful if you don't have that relationship with yourself. People will only see you as highly, only regard you as highly as you do yourself. So if you hold yourself in low self-esteem, that's how people will see you. How are you going to have a relationship there? So that first step is self-awareness. And the Elite Mentorship Forum is a big part of actually getting us there. There's other platforms. The Elite Mentorship Forum might not be for you. It's the one that, and I've done lots of them. I've done Tony Robbins. This is the one that resonates with me because for lots of different reasons. It's 6 months. You can't do this level of self-awareness or self-development on in a weekend, in a couple of weeks. You're tied up with a buddy, so you're held up with a one-to-one accountability buddy, person that you're connected to, that you'll have a chat with once a week, maybe once a fortnight, throughout the whole 6 months. And in actual fact, I did mine 3 years ago now, and I still have the same buddy. I still talk to her once a month. And we just compare notes again, just sort of bring up things about what we remember. So we're keeping it going years later. So these are things that we've put in line with the Elite Mentorship Forum. The live calls, the Q&A sessions, they're all part of the package, which keeps you in a role. So that's that first part that you have to do. You can't jump into the deeper work until you've sort of, you wiped away the dust, swept away the dust off the top, and really started to clear out all the clutter, if you like. Look at what your real blocks are, what your real significant emotional events are. So that's the first thing. And I suppose the next one is to embrace curiosity. Is to I was doing a training on the weekend, and it's taking you back to that time of innocence when you were really young. When we're really young, children are innocent, but they're curious. They're not led by their egos. Ego is a problem. It's not an enemy. It's not something that we need to squash or remove or switch off. It's something that we have to deal with and not let it lead us. Can't live without an ego. Most of us are led by our ego. Ego is a funny thing, and I could do a whole session on the ego, but the ego is not what we always see the bully. They've got an ego. The person at the victim level, that but to me level, that lowest level of consciousness, that's still a victim. That's still a ego state. And then the person that rides in, the rescuer, to save the person, to look after them, to save the planet, that's still an ego. And at that egotistical level, when you're being led because you know what's right, you're not going to be able to step into innocence. Now, stepping into innocence allows you to step into intuitive states, step into flow. But you're not going to reach those states. Very much in the ASME state is intuition, flow. Being able to flow is a state where you're not having to think about what's going on. It's just happening. You're not thinking about it happening. It's just happening. Whether it's business or sports or art, painters, you're not going to be able to step into that creative, unbridled creative state of mind unless you can uh, put the ego aside and just flow with it. So there's creativity, there's flow, there's intuitive state, there's also creativity, there's also curiosity. The ego knows it all. I know what's happening. I've come to rescue you, or it's happening to me because it always happens to me. These are all ego states, and they're all states where the curiosity is not going to come in. So embracing curiosity, realizing when you're not in it, because this curiosity is where you're going to learn the most. And in business, it's really interesting because Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand and then be understood. What's that mean? First, seek to be curious, or first be curious about everybody else's perspective. And then you don't have to say anything because you've had it all explained by everybody else. So noticing that you can step into this curious state. So in business, you can learn more. You can learn about what other people are meaning. If you don't know what they mean, the curious state steps in and you can ask them questions to help them understand what they're talking about better and for you to understand what they're talking about. So being able to step into a curious state, a state of curiosity, you're not, it's not even servant leadership. It's definitely not autocratic leadership. It's leadership by guidance so that you're asking open-ended questions. You're bringing up the things in a team that are holding them back. Their fears. If this team, they might not have won any games, but if they have that fear and they go into a game, they're probably going to lose the game. Recognizing that and being able to deal with it. Now, the ego isn't going to step in and say blindly, we're going to win. That's affirmations. They don't work. You're recognizing that it's a fear and you're reframing it. Okay, so you're reframing the fear. You're asking the open-ended questions to start to become curious about what's really underpinning what's going on for the team. So if there's fears, if it's being ego-driven, this is the sort of thing that comes out. This is where we're exposing shadows within a group. There's unspoken ways that a group interacts. So rather than letting your ego lead, letting curiosity lead is a really higher level of consciousness. Really starting to move into a through me state of mind. Well, within a team, it's better to lead than just stand back and be a sheep. But this is not leading from the front. This is leading, what's the word? It's not autocratic, is it? It's leading beside. So it's leading by being the example. That's what I was going to say. It's leading by being the example. So being curious, not leading, just being curious and ask the questions to expand on the project that you're looking at with the team. So leading with curiosity is a really strong point in helping you raise up through these consciousness levels. Now, obviously, if you've done this work as a coach, as a manager, as a leader, with a senior person within the company, then you're going to have looked at some of your shadows to find out what's stopping you achieve. You know, even if you're driven, so you're in that by me state, you're hard driven, you'll do many more hours than anybody else. You're going to end up with burnout, with heart attack. You end up with struggling relationships that don't really work. You're going to end up losing a lot of collaboration. You might sort of achieve all sorts of stuff, and lots of people do, and it's worked for a long time. This is not to say that this isn't the wrong thing to do, these different states. Lots of people are quite comfortable and to sit in the victim mode, the to me mode is where they are. So it's not judgment, these levels of consciousness. I think as a coach, as a trainer, it's recognizing where people are and helping them recognize where they are. Are they comfortable there? Do they want to move on? How are they going to move on? So one of the first things that we need to do is to identify our own shadows. And usually as a business person, it is a fear of failure. And how much has that stopped you? So as a coach, your fear of failure, how much has that stopped you achieving what you're really worthy of? I'm not going to quote Marianne Williamson's song. It's not our fears. I'm not gonna quote. I was looking at it during the week. So it's recognizing what our shadows are. Now, this is something that in shadow work, we don't go into shadow work in EMF. It's something that comes up from time to time. And we touch on it, but just basically with shadow work, the two easiest, cheapest ways to get into shadow work are by meditation and journaling. Now, meditation is something when we're in the buy me mode, we're racing, we're flat out. That's why we end up with burnout. We're always trying to achieve the next level or to have achieved the next level. So we don't really have time to sit down and smell the roses, to slow down. And this is what meditation does. And at that state, then we can start to become self-aware, become aware of what's going on for us, what our wobbles are, what our challenges are, our problems are. These are where our shadows start to come up. And it's not by sitting there with a piece of paper and pencil and writing them down. They're the conscious ones. And remember, our shadows are the unconscious, the suppressed, the denied, the things that we can't remember from our early childhood, the inner childhood. A certain number of them will start to come up with meditation. And journaling is something you just keep a diary every day, every night. The highs, the lows, what you noticed each day. And by doing that, you start writing by hand, you start to get into the habit of just expressing and noticing what's going on. Both of these forms of meditation, effectively, both meditation and journaling, they're meditative. They slow the mind down so that you can start to, instead of racing in the by me mode, you can start to move into a through me mode so things move into a flow state better. And it's in that flow state where you start to become more self-aware. You start to become aware of these shadows they're just below the surface. They're you know there's something there, but you're not quite sure about it. Now, it can be a little bit challenging doing shadow work because some of them can be scary. A lot of our shadows are not dark, they're light shadows. They're things that we've put off because we deny them in ourselves. We see them in other people. We see greatness in other people that we've denied in ourselves. So it's not all bad stuff, but there is that fear of the unknown. So is an integrator, is a leader in society and work and business, it's a coach to be seen as a leader. It's starting to integrate some of these parts. Now, it's not something you're going to do in a weekend, integration. Shadow workers, it's like all of this stuff, it's a journey. And the way that I look at it is a journey, and I can do bits and pieces, but then when something major in some huge emotional upheaval comes up, then it brings up all the shadows. And these are things that grab a hold of and deal with. Now, again, they're not something you'd about to deal with in the moment. This is the process that we go through, starting to sit with each of those emotional hooks that have come up, those emotional triggers that have come up. So noticing, identifying our shadows, identifying those obstacles that are stopping us lead, that are stopping us. So if I have a self-worth issue, where did it come from? But what is it stopping me do? And when does it come up? These are the sort of the questions that we ask ourselves, and then we start to get the answers start to come up. So if I'm my self-worth, I don't think I'm good enough. This is why I'm still, mid-management. This is what's stopping me. This is an obstacle. So okay, so where did it come from? Now, most people, they haven't woken up, and then they might have done the sort of the first part of the self-development stuff, but really they're still middle management because they haven't really assessed the shadows and then acknowledge them. And we don't confront shadows. We don't confront these problems. So why the heck did my father hit me? It's not his fault. Forgiveness is really high on the consciousness spectrum. Being able to forgive is a form of integration. So I'm not worthy enough, recognizing why it happened in that young life and being able to release the energy. You're not letting the person off. You're not telling them that it's okay. You're forgiving, you're not holding that energy within yourself. That energy of betrayal, that energy of I'm not worthy. Because that energy of I'm not worthy is what's stopping me advance in my career. So identifying these shadow obstacles. And one of the things that comes up is reframing goals. So, assessing what the goals are. So you've got these goals that you've worked out. So I want to improve my career. Let's talk about that as a goal. So that's a very by me goal. The through me angle on that is starting to, why do I want to achieve that? To get more money. Well, why do I want to get more money? So I can have things. Okay, well, you can't take anything out that you didn't bring into the world. Is that really going to satisfy me? Is it really going to make me happy? You spend all that money on buying a new car, and then 99%, 95% of the time it sits outside. by itself. We spent all that money on the car. What is it going to achieve? Is there another way of doing this? Is there another way of enjoying a car without spending all that money on it? Why do I want the car? For convenience. But then what happens, of course, we use it for all sorts of things that we don't really need to do. So when you do goal setting as a coach, one of the formats is this smart model. It's a specific, measurable, achievable, realistic in time. So if we look at the S, the specific. So what is it specifically? It's it's more than that. It's different to that. It's not specific. It's what does it really mean for us? Is this really going to fulfill? What is it going to fulfill? Is it going to make me happy? I could do another program on happiness, but what is it really going to do for me? Is it going to save me time? So reframing goals, assessing goals in light of this shadow work, assessing these goals. So there's a couple of things that we want to look at, actually identifying and sitting with acknowledging our shadows. Meditation, journaling are really good for that. Obviously, there's shadow coaches that you can use that will take you deeper, that will deal with a lot more of the stuff. There's lots of different techniques to dealing with shadows. Um, Meditation, journaling are just one of them. Guided meditation, visualization, or another form, and then there's the deeper work that you can do with integral theory, archetypes, spiral dynamics. There's a whole lot of personal work that you do, and you need a professional. You need somebody that's done that work to guide you through those exercises. So there's the working with your shadow, your obstacles, your shadows, and then looking at your goals, your real goals, not the superficial materialistic goals. And you're not going to be able to do that unless you've done the personal development work. So moving through the personal development stuff makes you more aware of, okay, that goal isn't really sitting with me. So if we break this back down now, let's have a look at the four levels and actual what we're dealing with in the shadows. So if we look at the first one, the to me level. So this is the trap, the victim level, where you're stuck, you're reactive, blaming others, avoiding confrontation. Really, really, it's not a place you're going to be setting goals. And if you do, it's going to be probably not positive. It's going to be reactive goals. It's just going to be hard work. And as I said, you're probably not here if you've done, if you're at this level. So the next level, the buy me level. This is the hustle level. This is where the burnout happens. This is the materialistic, driven, goal setting. Let's get everything done yesterday. And the way to work with these people, with yourself, and then lots of coaches are like this because you're trying to build a business. And you can't just switch this off, but it's recognizing when you need to drive and when you need to let go, stop and smell the roses, if you like. Exploring the failures. You know, if you're in a driven mode, you're not looking at failures. It's all jump from the next positive to the next positive, the next positive. We're going to learn as much in it. We learn more in our failures than we do in our successes. And if we really assessed our failures, how much potential are we leaving on the floor? So noticing at this level what your shadows are and pointing out to a team what's what is it with fear of failure that comes up. So looking at how the client of your coach looks after themselves. There's self-compassion, there's self-care. These are these are all things, so self-care, that how they validate their efforts. Do they look outside themselves or do they look internally? This is a way of starting to work with a client, with yourself mostly, because I'm talking to coaches, to start to notice the self-awareness that's going on for you. This is really what shadow work is cultivating. Yeah, I can spend my life setting goals and achieving or not achieving them, but I want to rise above that. And this is really what I do this for. It's starting to integrate all those bits of me that are no longer with me. I've suppressed, denied, whatever it is. And they're still there. They're still, being held in space, if you like, with energy. And so I'm a fraction of the energy that I came in with. So at this level, if you're working at this level, it's starting to notice how you value yourself, some of your shadows, your self-worth. Self-worth, and there's lots of shadows that we have. I'm just using self-worth as an example. By noticing yourself, you're starting to open the doors to move to a high level, to move to an easier life. I'm not talking about not achieving what you need to achieve. It's just putting it at a different level. So reframing those goals. Do I really need to, work my ass off to achieve this when all it's going to give me is no relationship? When really it's the relationships I value. But if I'm at work 80 hours a week, how am I going to have a relationship with my children? Reframing those goals, really looking at what's going on for them, looking at what their blocks are. Failure is going to come up. Reframing that failure is a really important thing to do. So, we come into the world with the fear of falling and a fear of loud noises. Everything else is learnt. We acquire everything else. So noticing where it came from, the fear of failure, the fear of the self-worth issues, there's something that you've acquired. This is where the shadow work comes in. This is something that starts to come up. When we start, so if you're moving from the by me to the through me level of consciousness, so your consciousness start to evolve when you're starting to notice these things coming up, what is it that's driving me? And I've worked with international sports teams, and an incredible number of them are driven by things that they don't want. Call them away from values, or fears that they have, or really deep shadows, traumas that cause them to work almost to bury themselves in their job so they don't have to remember the trauma, the emotional event, which they probably don't have conscious access to. It's a sense of something, a shadow that happened that they don't want to go near. So they work hard. So they saw their parents' relationship break down. So they work really hard because they don't want their relationship with their partner to break down. And working really hard, they're just running the same system. It's something that's gone through my life that I've noticed. I'm very interested in systems dynamics. We learn everything through systems. So and we don't know this, but most people don't think about systems. We see this and this and this happening. We don't look at the whole system. So this is the relationship my parents had, and it broke down. So I'm going to change that. So what happens? That's the system I've learned. That's the system I'll run. And so we don't know, but my relationship breaks down. So I get another relationship, and whoa, the same thing happens, and the relationship breaks down. The content might change, but the context doesn't, because we keep running the same systems. And you're not going to recognize this until you start to move to a 3-me mode, and you start to become aware of what's going on for you. And this is where the emotion comes in. It's not a conscious thought, it's an emotional thought. That gold between the behavior and the trigger, the emotion. So something triggers you, the emotion comes up, causes a behavior. This is the system that runs. So that working with a client, working with the team at work, with your subordinates, it's noticing, getting them to start to notice what's going on for them when this behavior is coming out. What's happening just before that little area of gold? Most people don't even notice it's there. They get triggered, they behave. They just bounce across the awareness of what's going on for them. So I'm going to move into the through me because I don't want to go on too much longer. So the through me is this level where you've started to move into flow. You're much more aware of what's going on, but you're still going to have some shadows going on. So it might be some control issues. You don't want to let go of control. Remember, through me is letting go of the rigid controls that we have. So back to it, by me, everything's got to be in line. This is how I'm going to achieve the goal. So you set this is how I'm going to do it. You set this linear pathway. Well, life's not linear. It's always going to have some kinks that are unpredictable. And you need to be able to let those go. You're still going to hold on to some of those in the 3-me mode. So it's almost encouraging a beginner's mindset. There's a loss of fear of failure. So we understand that, I think it was Microsoft, if you're not having 40% failures, you're not working the right way, because if you're working peak performance, you're going to have failures. You're not working peak performance. If you're not having failures, then you're pulling back and you're hiding and you're not pushing the envelope so far. So encouraging failure, monitoring it, you don't want to have too many failures, it's going to help people evolve and develop much more to a through me. And this through me thinking for a coach is really critical because, if there's a worry about failing, if there's a worry about the client spent the money, this is the big one for me. They've spent the money. I need to make sure they get the result. Now I have no idea what sort of result they're going to get, but I didn't want them to fail. Try that one. It doesn't matter what the client, it's not up to me if how can I word this? I'll run the process, I'll run the system, and the client will get out of it what they get out of it. And I need to let go of making sure that they get some huge breakthrough. The huge breakthrough might not come for a week. So that through me mode is embracing a fear of failure, letting go of the need for everything to be right. So it's allowing that sense of connection with the team, getting more into an intuitive flow. You don't step into an intuitive flow or flow until you've got all these things let go. And these things that we hold on to that's stopping us be creative, be intuitive, live in flow are our shadows. At the end of the day, that's how critical it is. We're not going to wholly step into flow, intuitive nature, curiosity, or creativity unless we can let go of all this stuff. That's why reaching a high consciousness level is so important. How far do you want to take your life? That's it. I'm going to wrap up tonight. I shouldn't have been speaking for so long. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you've got something out of this. We'll be back next week, probably a bit more working on our goals. There's a lot to go in here. And I'm not going to talk about coaching, life coaching, or setting smart goals or grow more because that's last century, if you like. These are bigger level. I talked last week about direct chief aim, DCAs, direct chief aim, very much in line with what we've been talking about tonight. Goal setting, vision setting on a much higher level. All right, guys. Thanks for being here tonight. And we will see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye for now.